to get things off, I want to give you all a sense of what the pool looked like of these invited concept outlines. These are the teams that we said, okay, these are fantastic. You're ready to move forward. This is kind of the first step in the process. So we received 488 and accepted 488 type 1s, 191 type 2s for a total of 679. So as you can see, we received significantly more type 1s, but also a very large number of type 2 concept outlines. Next slide, please. As Erwin mentioned, these concept outlines span the entire United States. All 50 states and US territories had at least one concept outline that was invited to this next step in the process. We are very, very excited about that. We're going to dive into this in a bit more detail in a couple of minutes, but I just want to say this is central to our mission of expanding the geography of innovation to more people in more places across the country. Really excited about the breadth and the diversity of the teams that have raised their hand and said, we are interested in building an NSF engine. Next slide, please. So I think this is really interesting. We tried to go through all of the accepted and invited concept outlines and break them down in terms of the lead organization. As you might expect, a very large percentage of them were for higher education, given NSF's background in working very closely with institutions of higher education in this community. We also received a significant number of applications from nonprofit and for-profits. I want to raise an important point here. We expect these numbers to change in the coming weeks between now and when teams submit their letter of intent and when teams submit their full applications. It is completely fine if during this period you decide the organization that submitted the concept outline isn't the right organization to submit a full proposal. It is also completely fine if based on these conversations that you have today and in the coming weeks and using our tools, you find other teams in your region or across the country working on similar topic areas and you all want to work together. That is fantastic. That is encouraged. That is why we built these tools. This is why we are doing things like Proposers Day. So while this is what the breakdown looks like right now, it could look very different when teams ultimately submit their proposals, and that is fine. That is encouraged, and we're excited about that. Next slide, please. So we also kind of showed some of the organizations that submitted in the most concept outlines. You'll see they span the country. They are largely academic institutions. The point of this isn't to call anybody out or to show anything, but to really say there's going to be some tough choices that institutions need to make in the coming weeks. And this is an important work. It's going to start today, and it's going to continue on. And what I really want to reinforce here is to get people out of the mindset of thinking as an institution. My institution has submitted X number of applications. We need to down select, but start to think about it about your region. You know, what does the region look like? Who is the best organization in that region to lead this? And rather than think about how many applications can my institution get in or what that process is, or is there a way to game it, think really about what are the places in your region that have the opportunity to develop an incredibly strong NSF engine, and think about the different topic areas that perhaps others in your region or others in your institution are working on that are cross-collaborative and cross-cutting and can be incorporated into a single engine application. Next slide, please. So we talk a lot about different partners throughout this entire process. For the Type 2 award, for the Type 2 concept outlines, we did a little internal process to try to understand what the partnerships look like for the people who are submitting Type 2 concept outlines. We weren't able to do it for the Type 1 concept outlines just because 2 pages wasn't enough information for us to pull out that data. But we wanted to basically say, hey, is this organization that wrote their concept outline have partnerships in a number of different sectors? So we did kind of a very basic process, but the goal of this is to kind of show where people are and show where we think people still need to get to in building these cross-sector partnerships. Next slide, please. So at first glance, it looks like the Type 2 concept outline submitters did a fantastic job. You know, 94% of them have at least one non-academic partner. It looks at face value like people really understood this task. But when you dig into the numbers a bit deeper, next slide, please, people were really good at calling out certain types of partnerships that either they already have or that they thought they could build. A number of times people would say, well, there's these industries in our backyard, so we could probably work with them, but we haven't had a conversation with them yet. We really want you to kind of supercharge that process right now and start to have those direct conversations, start to have those outreach, not just give us a landscape analysis, but actually actively have conversations with the different partners that span different sectors who are going to be critical to building an NSF engine. So that's folks in the nonprofit and the government world, which closely followed after industry, and even people in the incubator, foundry, investment world, which we didn't see as much of referencing of those types of partnerships. Those are really important throughout this process in order to create companies, to do the translational piece, to do a lot of the things that are central to the model of an engine. So we wanted to call those out as places that perhaps people can focus some additional attention on in these coming weeks. And to be completely honest, if people mentioned an industry partner or mentioned that they were talking to government, we check the box. So these numbers actually might overrepresent the amount of cross-sector partnership that we saw kind of in this first cut of the concept outline. So there's a lot of early good work being done, but there's a lot more work to be done as well. Next slide, please. So another thing that Grace on our team will talk a little bit about is we try to use the keywords that you all put forward and almost map the different topic areas that people are thinking about across the country. The topic areas that are largest here are the ones that the most people were interested in. This doesn't necessarily mean that they're the topic areas that align most closely with NSF's areas of interest. We have called this an open call, but we just thought it'd be interesting for you all to be able to search the data by topic area. You'll be able to use that both in the visualization tool on Tableau and also in the Airtable collaboration tool. We wanted to give you that ability to understand what other people are thinking about and think about how you could potentially team up with them. We are very open to making multiple awards in similar topic areas to different engines. So don't think that you need to go towards these topic areas or move away from your topic area. We just want to give you a sense of what the landscape looks like. Next slide, please. So some of the most popular topics were advanced manufacturing, bioeconomy, climate change, health. Interestingly, a lot of people use keywords like equity or rural communities or innovation, which might not, be as tied directly to a topic area in the traditional sense, but are central parts of our model. You'll see workforce development here as well. So what I want you to see on this slide is we really want to encourage people to think about topics that cut across multiple technology areas. They want to have focus, but also things that are cross-collaborative, cross-technology area, bringing people together who otherwise might not work together is really one of the key goals of an NSF engine, and doing that in a really intentional way that catalyzes economic growth. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dimitri, who's going to do a bit of a deeper dive into what this looks like from a geographic perspective, and also ask you all a couple of tough questions that you'll probably be grappling with in the coming weeks. Dimitri?
Sure. Thanks, Daniel. And just to make one housekeeping note, so I apologize, I meant to say this earlier. So for the general session, you can submit questions via the Q&A or the chat. I see folks are submitting questions there. But because of the format of this session, we will not be answering questions directly, but we will take all of your questions and answer them offline, and then you'll have an opportunity to raise questions in the breakout session. But for the general session, we'll not be able to answer any questions, primarily just because of the format. But hopefully, the question that you're submitting, you'll hear answers throughout the presentation. So with regard to the data that we see here, so as we dug deeper into the data and fielded a number of questions from the community, from those who actually had their outlines invited, we realized that there were a number of common issues that the teams were wrestling with. And we quickly realized that many of those issues centered around the idea, or the issue, that a number of concept outlines come from the same organization or overlapping regions. And so this is just an example. We're not picking on Texas. We just use this as an example. And so in this slide, you can see that in this blue area here, there were a number of concept outlines submitted and in close proximity to each other. And you can see in the chart to the right there that a number of those concept areas, topic areas are in the same area, right? Carbon reduction, energy, batteries, and so forth. And so many of the questions that we received then we kind of categorized into three different buckets. One is around multiple invited concepts or topic areas, the region of service, and the engine structure. And so We just list some of the questions here because they were very common, and we'll try to answer these here. And so in the first category, can we shift our other concept outlines to a partner organization? Can we submit multiple LOIs? And of course, technically, the answer is yes to both of those, right? So if an organization submitted multiple concept outlines, eventually they will down select to one. And so the question is, can they shift their own unselected concept outlines to another organization? So technically, that would be, or to a partner organization, that would be true. Can you submit multiple LOIs? Technically, that's true. The BAA only limits one full proposal. So folks want to know, can we extend the amount of time that we take to determine which concept we're going to pursue? How do we select the right concept among all of our concept outlines? And so what I would like to say here, to reiterate what Daniel mentioned earlier, is that, we really want you to think more along the lines of what's best for the region. What should the region be submitting as a coalition of partners? And so, as you can see in the previous slide here, a number of, at least 6 of the concept outlines here are centered around carbon reduction. And so, is it more useful to the region for those 6 teams to perhaps come together and submit a single proposal in this topic area? And so really what we would strongly recommend is that teams come together, really understand if there's overlap in their concepts. And even if it appears that it's not, there may be, an overlap in computing and biology, for example, and maybe you want to work at the nexus of those 2 topic areas. And so our advice there is to really think about, while technically the answer is yes, you can submit multiple concept outlines, yes, you can submit multiple LOIs. It's really important for the teams to come together and decide what's best for the region and submit a strong regional proposal. The region of service, is our proposed region a right fit for the engines program? Is our region of service too geographically spread out? That is it too large? Our region includes a thriving innovation ecosystem. Are we actually eligible? And so for the first 2 questions is, again, when you decide or determine the size of the region, it shouldn't be for an arbitrary reason or just for convenience, right? So when you define a region, it should make sense, for example, from a market perspective. It should make sense from the stakeholders that will be involved. It should make sense from a practical perspective. That is, if you're receiving 160 million, how much of those funds can you really spread over that geographical region? How can you really have a strong impact? So you should make the decision on the size of the region based on the nuances and issues within that region. So NSF wouldn't say that it's too large or too small per se, but it should make sense for the goals and the scope of your defined topic. And then the engine structure. Are we the right organization to lead the regional engine? And are we building an engine structure to successfully grow innovation capacity and regional economy? And the second question is related to the notion of many times NSF funds, research-based centers at universities. And so here we're stressing that this engine is not focused on a specific organization, but it should be a regional focus, and determining the right lead organization should emanate from that goal, right? So if it's a university or a nonprofit or industry partner, the right lead is going to be the organization that's able to bring all those folks together, that understand what it takes to actually drive an innovation ecosystem, who has the right mindset to develop the trusted partnerships. And so those are the kinds of questions you want to ask yourself as you determine who's the right lead to do this. And if it's an existing organization, then they should be able to demonstrate that they have the capabilities, that they are nimble enough to adjust to the demands of the region, that it's organized in a way that it's going to bring together a diversity of folks from within the region. And so these are some of the tough questions that many of the teams have presented to us. And we think that, really digging into your region, talking with the other teams within the region who have submitted concept outlines, and really identifying, what makes sense from a regional perspective, the industry that's in that region, and so forth. And so we just wanted to give you some insights on how you might address some of the tough questions as you build your teams and build your regional coalitions. So I'll stop right here and turn it back over to Dane.
Great, thank you so much. So we've thrown a lot of data at you. We've asked some tough questions, but how can we make this easier for you? What does this look like? How do you collaborate with each other to actually do the things that Dimitri and I have talked about? So you'll see here in this graphic, every single one of you on this call is a concept outline submitter or on the team of a concept outline submitter. You are going to start receiving outreach from fellow concept outline submitters. You're going to receive it from the general public. You might have already received some of this outreach. This is great. This is fantastic, but don't just be a passive recipient of outreach. Reach out to other people who you see who are doing really interesting things. Publicize the fact that you all are a part of this so that more people can think about how they want to work with you. Use this tool, use everything that were created in a collaborative way and also in a proactive way. So Salima, if you could drop the Airtable collaboration tool link in and also the YouTube video. You don't need to work on this right now during the presentation, but we want to make sure you have this top of mind. In a couple of minutes, Grace from our team is going to talk you through another tool, but I wanted to make sure everyone has this first tool because this tool is going to be central to how you actually reach out to others and how others will reach out to you. Next slide, please. So who might be using the tool, this Airtable collaboration tool? You might have your fellow concept outline submitters who are reaching out to you. It could be people who are interested in being a core partner. They might say, hey, I can bring this unique skill set to your team. Let's see if we can work together. It could also hopefully be funders, investors who invest in that area, philanthropic organizations focused on that regional footprint, corporates that are focused on your topic area or based in your region. But it isn't going to just happen because they find you. Like, we really need everyone to proactively help push these tools out and spread the word so that more people can find you. We've encouraged state and local government leadership to look at the different teams that are applying within their city, state, region. We're talking with congressional offices, and the tool that you'll see slightly later, you'll be able to see actually a breakdown of all the concept outlines from each congressional district. And last but not least, we really want data wonks and researchers to use this data and build on top of it. We want them to build their own tools, their own visualizations. We built it in such a way where you can download the data and manipulate it in a number of different ways. So do that. So I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to reinforce it again. It is really important that you reach out to people through the data visualization tools, that you respond to people if you're interested when they reach out to you. The more people using this is almost like a two-sided marketplace, the stronger the tools are, the more useful they are, the better the applicant teams that we're going to see. So as much as possible, we highly encourage you to proactively use these tools as you build your teams and as you find additional partners. Next slide, please. So a number of you might have received an email like this one. TJ, if you could drop in the email address it might have come from. And this will be either from another concept outline submitter, or it could be from the general public. And it'll be someone reaching out saying, I saw your concept outline. What you're doing is interesting. I think we could work together on use-inspired research or workforce or whatever it might be. And here's what I think I can bring to the table. Here's how I think I can help you. If you're interested, say absolutely, click on their email and respond back to them and start a dialogue. If you're not interested, you can completely ignore this as well. But we wanted to build it in such a way where you have the opportunity to have these conversations with everyone who raised their hand and said, what you're doing in X, Y, and Z location is really exciting and interesting. Next slide, please. So an important thing, though, is when you get these incoming emails, just know they don't have your contact information. It's completely up to you how you respond back. When you respond back, they'll have your contact information. But until then, you control how that information is handled. You control who you want to talk to. You control everything. But we really do encourage you, if people are interesting, for you to have those conversations and to figure out if there might be ways to work together that might not have been intuitive, or then that might not have already been a part of your consortium that you were thinking about pulling together.